Before I start today, can I just say a massive thank you to the Hello AI Collective. Guys, I think you've all done a fantastic job and great venue and great food as well. So I hope everybody enjoyed their lunch. I'm going to be talking about how I see the future of work and how I see it being redesigned. Now, my background is I've worked in fintech before it was called fintech, which is showing my age. And then I've worked in proptech, and now I'm in sports as well. So 20 years. So some of you will be thinking that this will be a presentation about football. Unfortunately, it's going to be more about AI, but that's exactly why we're here today. And I'm super excited about what's going to happen and around the AI space. And what I really want to do is for you guys to be thinking really positively about what I say today. There's been some negative press about AI and what's going to happen, but I'm genuinely excited. And I think the opportunity now in using AI is incredible. And what I'm really trying to pull together in this presentation is there's a few trends that I've seen, and I've tried to pull the threads together into a narrative that give a little bit of an indication about where I see the future going and how this is going to impact individuals, teams, and also organizations going forwards. So what I really want to do is focus on one particular value. And in this case, it's 95%. So hands up here, is anybody listen to Lemmy's podcast by any chance? Awesome, fantastic, highly recommend it. I'm not going to go into detail about it, but there's a software developer that he interviewed recently called Simon Williamson. And this guy is co-developer on a framework called Django, which is like one of the big frameworks out there. So this guy's software is used by probably billions in terms of its influence. Now, he said recently that 95% of his code is written by AI. This guy doesn't have an agenda. He doesn't work. He's not trying to sell you anything. Doesn't work for one of the big AI labs. So he's somebody working at the cutting edge who's developing things that people are using. And he's turning around and saying 95% of the code that I'm creating is being done by AI. 95%. Now, from my perspective, how do we get to that 95% is a really interesting thing for me, because that's an incredible statistic and really gives you a guidance as to what's going to happen in the future. Now, who's here has heard of GitHub or used GitHub in the past? Good. Okay. So GitHub is much like a shared spreadsheet you have from Microsoft that allows other people to be able to edit it. And effectively, you can upload code to it, and there's pull requests and people with comments against them. It keeps large teams being able to work with a single code base. But has anybody got any idea roughly how many lines of code are in the public GitHub repository? Anyone? Well, I couldn't really find an answer to that online, but the closest guess to 2.5 trillion lines of code that I could see. So you asking me why I get to that 95% is because you've got one of the best curated data sets in the world sat in the public domain on the web that you can train these AI models in. And that to me is incredibly powerful. What I want to do here as well is ask you not to necessarily look at that 95%, is also look at the 5% of what you should be doing as well. Because 95% is being done by AI. So there's also an incredibly valuable 5%. And that's really where I'm going to be focusing as well. So what does this also mean for other industries? Because that's software. Now, other industries as well, do they have the same? Well, things are going to be changing. Now, anybody heard, and this is also because like no one's putting up their hand. Has anyone heard of a company called Merkle before? No? The fastest growing company pretty much no one's ever heard of. The fastest company to get to $500 million in revenue. And that was 17 months it took. And what does this company do? It matches specialists with AI labs. So effectively what's happening now is AI labs are utilizing specialists as quickly as they can to pull them in to build their data repositories for those individual segments. Think healthcare, and you need to think about finance, accountancy, anything else that you can think of is really being pulled in, because that kind of slow linear growth that GitHubs have of people putting in code And then now it's being trained. Everyone wants to start to create the GitHub with everything. And from my perspective, I think that's incredibly important to look at where things are going in terms of that exponential speed up in terms of training these models, because that means that 95% might also start to happen in other industries much faster than it took software to get there as well. So I also want to talk about how we're going to deploy agents, because effectively Claude Code is an agent. It does something. We're all used to chatting to ChatGPT and just having a conversation. It gives back an answer. That's not really what's happening here. We're giving AI a challenge. We're saying, we want you to go build something. We're not telling it exactly how to build it. We're giving it a lot of rope and saying, here's something we want you to do. Now you have to try and get it right. You have to guide it very carefully. And I've used Claude Code a lot myself and built a lot of software products. And I think that what we're going to see now is that these agents need to be brought into teams, organizations, and even your personal agents in an organic way, right? You need to be thinking about onboarding them exactly like a human going forwards, because agents have memory. We've already known that because there's intrinsic ability of the AI model itself, but we're giving it context. We're giving it lots of memory so that it understands and can really start driving its autonomous work. And that's how Claude Code works. It's also got vision. You can turn around to an agent and give it a personality. You can tell it what you want your organization to do. You can tell it what you want your team to do. And it will go and follow those instructions. And that's incredibly important, because it's not just talking to ChatGPT like lots of people do and it just provides a response. You're actually shaping who the AI agent is moving forwards. And it's a lot easier to do than you think. And you can do this with Claude Code. You can do this with ChatGPT. But they've also got touch. So it's a digital touch, but there's no reason why it can't extend to APIs and CLI and NCP. These are all ways for agents to be able to talk to additional systems out there and pull information, be that the email, be that the weather, or anything else more complex as well. So very much think about the agentic future as in bringing on somebody in Oracle and onboarding a member of staff into your team. And lastly, if anyone's heard of OpenClaw, one of the things that OpenClaw has made so successful is it gave agents a heartbeat. If you didn't want the organic analogy anymore. And that means that your agents will wake up at regular periods of time, check what's going on, pull the information they need. Do I need to do anything? No, they'll go back to sleep again. So very much, I think the future is going to be making sure that your team topologies are really thinking about where the agents are. Now, what we're also looking at here is not just a single agent. Businesses are going to have multiple agents. We're going to have them all over. So not only are you getting this depth of understanding and memory and information that a single agent understands, but you can also scale that horizontally as well to do different tasks. And that means that we're going to get something incredibly powerful, not just on a single level, but on a two-dimensional level. And it means that this really starts asking the question, if you can start scaling things that quickly, what's the role? How are we going to start interacting with it? And the reason why I've put that number on the screen is because and there's a typo on there, it's not, it's actually, the reason why I've got 17,000 on there is there's another product out there as well called getjimmy.ai. And I'm not expecting anybody to have heard of this. What they're doing is they're moving AI models from software into the silicon on the individual chips. And I recommend anyone to go and try it, because effectively it's generating not just 100,000 and not just 100 tokens a second, then generating 17,000 tokens a second as well in terms of the feedback from AI. So we're seeing an incredible increase in the compute power if we were to put it into silicon, as well as we're seeing that all of the software vendors, including Lenovo, are also driving how you can put local models on there as well. So we're seeing this incredible amount of compute power. We're seeing the infrastructure and the hardware to really drive incredible amounts of insight as these models getting more and more powerful with data as well. So what this really means is that if you've got, let's say 1,000 agents in your organization, and they're doing particular roles. Instead of your company pulling together an all staff and turning around and selling a new vision to all on the staff, and that's almost like an old way of doing it now, because if you've got 1,000 agents, you can change the vision, you can change what they're doing, and you can change how they operate and act in a single config change. And that means that you can start pivoting your organizations way faster than you can today. So if there's individual threats that come in or opportunities in a config change, you can change 1,000 members of staff internally. Unbelievable, right? Businesses are going to move so much faster tomorrow than they do today. And again, we're pushing the limits about humans, right? How much can we really interface with an organization that can move that quickly? And keeping humans in sync with that is going to be a challenge in itself. But there's 3 things that agents can't do. Or not yet, but there's 3 things that agents can't do. One is judgment. We still need, anyone who's built with these systems and anyone who's built with the agents, you still need judgment in order to be able to achieve the results that you want. So this is very much human. You still need to guide, you still need to shepherd. And anyone who's built with Forward Code knows you actually spend a lot of your time QAing the output to make sure that what's done is correct in the first place. You need to give it incredible information in terms of what it should build. You also need to be checking afterwards to make sure that the quality is there. And that's a human thing that you can't get through AI. Another one is presence. I'm in this room talking to you guys. Like, business is still going to be intrinsically in its lowest level a human thing, right? And AI isn't going to replace that necessarily tomorrow. And I think that presence and execution is going to be incredibly important in terms of driving actually how AI systems work. And last is accountability. So, somebody still has to be accountable for these systems. They can't just run willy-nilly across the organization. And that's going to require somebody standing up and saying, I own this. And I own the output of what this system's doing. And that's going to be incredibly important as well, because it puts us on the hook for how quickly and how fast these things operate. That somebody's going to turn around and say, that's my responsibility. So what does that really mean in terms of how we operate within organizations? Because actually, the way that we operate today, if you look at it, if 95% of the code is gone, effectively what that means is that roles are going to change. Now, previously, we had software developers, QAs, Scrum Masters, product managers. Now, AI has become capable enough, suddenly that starts to merge. And you're seeing the senior leaders are now being asked, even me, to becoming more present in terms of what we do, being more hands-on. And actually those roles are starting to merge together. So it's an exciting time at the moment. And the World Economic Forum sent some statistics recently. It said that those companies that are AI interfaced, I remember AI exposed, their roles are changing 66%, or 66% of the roles are changing. That's up from 25% last year. And what that's going to mean is the role that you apply for, hypothetically, if you're talking to someone and they want a promotion, should you be saying, actually, you need your manager's job? Because if the world's changing that quickly, they might be trying to get a job that doesn't even exist today, because the roles are changing because of the way that AI is coming into the organization. I think that's incredibly important, and it really gives a moment that I'll talk about this a bit later on as well. There's is a real threat about this as well. The same guy that said that 95% of his code is being generated by AI also said that he's also burnt out later than them. And I think that's a really important stat. Because as humans, are we actually designed to do 8 hours of incredibly deep work? Whereas, 4 or 5 AI agents are spitting out so much work that we feel under pressure in order to be able to validate that. What does the balance look like going forwards? And, is it going to change how our workday operates? Are we going to do 1 hour off, and 1 hour on, and then 2 hours off, and then 1 hour back on again? Are we going to work late into the evening? I think it poses some really interesting questions about how we interface with AI systems. And certainly, the heart of a business review turned it AI brainfly. I'm not sure it posed that, but I've certainly felt some of that myself when I've been using these agentic systems in the past. but I really want you to focus on how the cognitive load on humans, because how fast it is, how that might change how we operate or in our organizations and individually going forwards as well. But I think adding on to this a little bit, I think that if I had to make a call myself, I'd say that depth alone won't be enough. And the one thing that this would push in terms of the 5% that we're looking for, because if 95% of my coding was done, that 5% suddenly becomes, we need to know a lot more about lots more things, about lots more topics and a lot more depth. And it's no surprise to me that some of the younger generation aren't going out as much, aren't drinking as much, trying to be healthier. When actually, if you look at social media and the bombardment of information that we already get today and how that's changing how people in our society are operating, we're actually going to have to be more cognitive and more present if we're going to be, if you want to be a leader in this new space, because effectively the demands on us are going to be high because we're going to be working faster and pivoting faster than we ever have before. And I think that's incredibly important that we think about not just the depth of understanding that we have, but the breadth as well. And I think it's incredibly important. So I actually say that football, interestingly enough, is a really good example of this. And this is where I will touch on football. A football club is a collection of multiple businesses. So we are you're in one right now. It's a hospitality business, be food and beverage. We're a retail business. We're an e-commerce business. We're a marketing business. We're a marketing agency as well for other people. There's like 10 or 12 different business lines, and that's not even including the football side of the business. And in my world, I have to look after cybersecurity just about everything else. I do the tiny team. I often say to people that working in the football club's awesome if you really enjoy intellectual self-harm, because the amount of things you're going to have to do. And when I look at the future in terms of leadership with AI as well, I don't doubt what people are going to have to be thinking about all the different things that I think about across multiple domains going forwards to provide that 5%, because that 95% is being driven. So I said that I really wanted you to feel confident about what we're doing as well. And, but I really wanted to put some clear questions in your head about what the future might look like from my perspective. And in order to feel confident about this, I want to be clear about a few different things. First off is timescales. Some businesses haven't even migrated to the cloud yet. We've been in the cloud for a while, right? We've got incredibly difficult challenges around finding the USP and the business challenge of AI and how to integrate that into organizations. That's one of the reasons why we're all here today, right? It's one of the reasons why Hello AI Collective has been created in order to be able to break down those barriers. But the timescales isn't going to happen today. What I'm trying to outline to you guys is that this is what I'm seeing in the future. And I'm trying to help guide the thinking in terms of how you can think about yourself, the teams and the organizations, to think about what this might look like in the future. So there's plenty of time on the timescales yet, although things are moving fast, as we all know, because everyone's got AI FOMO. The next one's trust. And people aren't necessarily trusting these systems at the moment. That will improve, but it's going to take some time. And that certainly harks back to the accountability side. And lastly, this is your moment, right? You're here because you want to understand about these things. The opportunities are there for everybody to see. These systems are incredibly powerful. There's the opportunity to leapfrog, for organizations to leapfrog pre-existing organizations who have got legacy debt in terms of the people who work in those organizations and also what they do as well. So being able to pivot faster and quicker and take that opportunity, if you're embracing this, it's going to be an incredible moment right now. And I think it's really, really exciting. So 5 things I really want you to take away. First one is follow the outliers. So what I've been doing to provide this presentation is following the outliers. I want you to find yours, whatever industry you're in or whatever you're doing. I'd love you to be able to find those people that are really pushing the boundaries of what these are doing and follow them and make sure that you're keeping up to date with what they're doing. The next one is very much around the data. I think the technology feels to me like it's mature enough. We already know that some of the best programmers are are getting 95% of their code, follow the data. Because we know that can happen today. And as we move into different industries and those data sets are created, you'll see the same disruption going forwards as well. So follow the data and everything else should follow. Next point really is that organic piece. Think about AI in terms of onboarding it into your teams and your organizations as well. Bring it in, configure it, and make sure that it's part and you get access to data. So that it's got all those key attributes in order to be able to succeed. Protect the 5%. I'm not going to go into that too much anymore, but hopefully what I've provided to you is that it's really about providing that breadth and that depth and the judgment and those human elements that allow us to be able to separate from how AI works today. And lastly, build for cognitive identity. That's your organizations. That's what we do in terms of hiring. That's how we operate individually and how we're pushing ourselves, because AI is going to ask us to be the best version of ourselves, I believe. And that's going to put challenges on us that we're going to have to raise the bar on. But you know what? That's what we love, right? And that's what we're driving for. And I think the last question that I have for all of you in the room is to sit down and to really take away from this, especially those who are in leadership position, is, how many people in your organization could manage 10 concurrent agents in 2027? And how would you even know? How would you know where they are or why? Because that's where it looks like it's going. Thank you very much.